It is time for another amazing episode of Sports Talk with Dad. A lot to talk about today, but before we get into any of that, as always, my name is Kyle, and I cannot call this Sports Talk with Dad without the man sitting next to me, a man who was alive when Yellowstone was first created, my dad, Tim.
Yeah, I don't think that's even close to true.
It's the beginning of time. I mean,
Uh-huh.
It's been a while.
Uh,
Super volcano.
super volcano
If it
that
erupts, the world is over.
I want to be right there if it erupts.
Well, if it's going to erupt, it needs to erupt. What I guess when this is dropped will be this week. Just so you all know.
I don't want it to explode when you guys are out there.
I mean, if we're gonna go, let's go in a blaze of glory.
No.
It would be quite the thing to see. We are recording this a little bit early because when this drops on Tuesday, I will be smack dab in the middle of Yellowstone National Park. We are taking the kids out west. We're going to see the monuments. We're going to see Crazy Horse and Mount Rushmore, a dinosaur dig site, the Spam Museum we are going to stop at, which is going to be a lot of fun.
Mystery Meat Museum.
Hey, it's pork shoulder and ham. It stands for Specialty Product American Meat or something like that. Yeah, Specialty Products American Meat.
Your grandfather, who was a milkman, and he'd get up at like 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And I'd get up with him because it was a chance to spend some time with him.
Yeah.
And he would make Spam and eggs. And when I hear that now, I think of the Monty Python.
Yes.
Spam and eggs. But
I will play that as we are getting closer.
You should.
It'll be funny. We needed a stopping point, and it is about 4.5 hours into the 12-hour drive. I figure that's a perfect stopping point.
There's a better one that I told you about.
Which one?
John Hardy's Barbecue, Rochester, Minnesota.
It may be on there. Listen, I am trying to get
if it is, bring back a gallon of the barbecue sauce because
That's fair.
I love it.
That's fair. It's going to be a lot of hiking. I'm very, very excited. It's going to be a very spiritual journey that I am excited to take. I'm ready for it.
The fact you're going to see Mount Rushmore and Crazy Horse.
Yeah.
Which looks amazing. And I hope you get to go up by the face of Crazy Horse.
Possible. We'll see if they're taking tours that day. I'm sure it's going to rain because that's how it works. And if it does,
you jinx yourself on that.
I do. But it's going to be a lot of fun, and I am making the kids drive through Nebraska to see all the cornfields. Nothing against anybody that lives in Nebraska.
We're drive to watch a show.
Yes, and Nebraska,
sucks.
It doesn't suck.
To drive it?
To drive it, it sucks. It is flat and boring, and I think it's important as a father to make your children feel pain. And there is nothing more painful than driving through the state of Nebraska.
When I lived in Colorado, I made that drive 15 times, and you did too.
It's a tough one.
It is. Every time you think you see the mountains, and there's light at the end of the tunnel. Not even close. You're
still 3 hours away. But it will be a fun drive to go through because on the way home, depending, I may just make the kids do it. We are going to be going by Dyersville, Iowa.
Field of Dreams.
And I made that intentional. We will be stopping by the Field of Dreams. I'm telling the kids if they're not up to it, we won't stop. But we all know that's a lie.
Yes.
Like we are stopping at the Field of Dreams.
When you were a kid, we stopped there because you went to summer camp close by there.
Yes. It's a beautiful thing.
It's a spiritual place.
It is. I haven't seen it since the new stadium's been built. I know they're doing more construction over there.
Which I'm not a big fan of.
I loved the game. I don't know why you just didn't cut into the corn more and just played it on the actual field, because you could have lengthened that field at least for a little bit and grown the corn back.
Look,
I think it was a cool one-time thing. If you're going to do it, the White Sox, you've said it several times, the White Sox need to be the team that always plays there.
Correct. It's got to be White Sox versus whoever.
Cubs Reds was cool in their old uniforms, but it is White Sox, and they can play whoever. That is a White Sox game. I agree with you.
It's almost like a Thanksgiving Day. It's got to be the Lions.
It's got to be the Cowboys.
Right. And then Field of Dreams game, because the whole movie was built around the White Sox.
Yep.
It has to be the White Sox.
I agree. I 100% agree. But it will be a fun trip. I'm very, very, very excited.
No, this ain't baseball screwed up.
There's so many that we have been through, but the Cubs have not screwed up. I don't know what I was trying to say there, but since lighting the cigar, the Cubs have scored 36 runs in 2 games.
They could have saved them and spread them out a little bit.
They could have.
But they beat the Reds.
It is the most the highest run total they've had in a 2-game span since 1897. It is a team of destiny. Joe Boo, you're doing your magic work for me. I appreciate it. Just because I need to
there
make
you
sure.
go. I was gonna say you better light it up.
We'll keep this cigar lit just for you, Joe Boo. The rum's still in there. It may be sacrilegious, but it seems to be working a little bit today.
Whatever works. I believe in the power of Joe Boo.
I do too, but Joe Boo, Jesus Christ, can hit a curveball.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
But let's get on to sports because there's some big news in college football. College football ramping up in a year of change, I think is the best way to say it. This is the first year where we are really seeing the results of the NIL, really seeing the results of what the transfer portal has become. I think Hugh Freeze, in his first year at Auburn, said it best when talking about this is the most uncomfortable I have ever been going into an offseason because he has a quarterback he hasn't practiced with yet.
Right.
He has not coached him for one single day. He's a transfer from Michigan State, and that's somebody that's going to be competing for the starting quarterback job.
Probably going to win that job.
Probably. And so he has a quarterback that has not ever been in his system, and you have what? 4 weeks maybe to get this kid ready? I mean, you're going to have some games that are quote-unquote preseason games, but they count.
They count in the college football.
It's going to be interesting. Colorado, they got a lot of their guys before spring.
They're now Big 12.
They're now Big 12. Wisconsin, Ohio State, they have a lot of transfers coming in that were not there for the spring games. It's going to be interesting.
The biggest news, of course, is that the Big Ten is talking to Oregon and Washington. By the way, the two teams I predicted, not that you did.
I said Oregon, Stanford.
Yeah, well, it's not happening.
Washington makes sense.
Washington does make sense. Both teams were in the playoffs recently. They'll be a great fit. I love the fact that the Big Ten will now start at 11 a.m. with an early East Coast game, and they'll be playing all day every Saturday until 1 in the morning.
They better not. They better schedule their games a little bit better.
Well, they're going to have games starting at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock Eastern time.
Nope.
Because the people on the West Coast will be able to watch those games.
No, if they do that, they are stupid. The whole point of USC and UCLA coming into the Big Ten, and the whole point of Oregon and Washington, if this goes through, which Oregon's going to be a part of the Big Ten, they reached out to the Big Ten to be there.
That was rumored.
They are coming.
Yeah. It was originally going to be USC and Oregon.
It was, but USC wouldn't come without UCLA.
Correct.
That was the whole thing. But the whole point of that is to get more of an audience across the country. You cannot start your games at 9 o'clock Eastern anymore if you are going to get that audience.
You're still going to get it. Some of the games are going to be moved up earlier. But
no game can start before 7 p.m.
They are going to dominate Saturday college football. And now, on top of that, Florida State made big waves today, telling the ACC that if you don't give us more money, we're out. That's the breakup of the ACC. If Florida State goes,
it's one domino. You're just waiting for that first domino to fall.
Clemson, Miami, I think would be a perfect fit for the Big Ten, and then you truly have a national conference, and you have one strong, very regional conference in the SEC.
Yeah, it is SEC versus Big Ten at that point, if that breakup happens.
Big 12 is going to be a combination of the old Big 12
That's the other big news is Colorado moving back to the Big 12, which is huge for the Big 12, especially with Deion Sanders being there with the team we assume he is going to build.
Look, Deion Sanders, they're going to be much better. Last year, they were worst team in the Power 5 comp.
They won one game.
They're going to be better this year?
Yeah.
They're not competing for any titles.
Probably not.
I'm thinking 5, maybe 6 wins.
I mean, they're hoping for more.
It's still going to be the most talked about program in football. Deion is bringing all that excitement. Arizona State, I think, moves to the Big 12. And when the big guys come to the Big 10, Washington, Oregon, maybe Stanford, when they come, the rest of those schools will combine with the Big 12.
Yeah.
New conference name, and away we'll go. Excuse me for my voice.
You are breaking up.
I'm back. I'm
all
fine.
Right, good deal. It's going to be interesting because if Florida State leaves, they're going to the SEC. Like that, if they're leaving the ACC, they're going to the SEC. There's no way they're coming to the Big Ten or another conference. No. It is the SEC. But that does leave Miami wide open because while the SEC, I'm sure, would like Miami, I got to assume the Big Ten's going to make a bigger pitch. And that also leads to Notre Dame having to make a choice. And I can't imagine they're going to make a choice to go to the SEC. Now, they could.
They could, but and here's my question. They're going to be forced into a conference finally. I think that's a good thing. Their arrogance is off the chart. Sorry, Notre Dame, but it's true. But if Miami, Clemson come to the Big Ten, which I think is possible, what does Notre Dame do? Because you can't have an odd number of teams.
No, and you're going to take, basically you're taking all of Notre Dame's rivals and putting them in the Big Ten. USC is now in the Big Ten. Stanford's now in the Big Ten. If you take Clemson and Miami, those are two big rivals for them. They're now in the Big Ten.
North Carolina, maybe they've had an okay football program. And make no mistake, this is all about football.
It is.
I think getting Washington and Oregon will help the scheduling problems that the Big Ten has had with the non-revenue sports.
They'll start splitting up into different divisions.
Well, what did we talk about a long time ago? That if they get Washington, Oregon, and just say, for sake of argument, Stanford, Notre Dame, Clemson, and Miami, you've got 4 divisions, and you have the playoffs.
Right. And if you're going to bring in Notre Dame, you could bring in Stanford as well. I still think Iowa State is a huge plus for the Big Ten if they can get them in. I think it's a perfect fit. I honestly thought Pitt and Ohio State. Pitt and Iowa State are great fits for the Big Ten. I was surprised that Pitt went to the ACC. But again, if Florida's that first Florida State, is the first domino to fall, it's a question of who else, because the ACC is going to start breaking up.
The ACC will fall relatively quickly.
Or they become a basketball only.
That could happen, but the Big Ten's not going to allow that.
Well, that's just it. You won't go into the Big Ten. But you do have Duke, you do have North Carolina, which both have football teams.
Yes, they have teams.
Hey, the quarterback for North Carolina this year is a favorite for the Heisman Trophy.
Hey, look, I think Notre Dame would be a good fit in a truly national conference where the big, whatever they're going to call the Big Ten at that point.
Right.
I think it'd be a good fit. I think Iowa State would be competitive, kind of in football, but they'd get beat up so badly week after week.
Basketball, they were. There's been a big conference in the basketball side of things too. I know you're not. I know
this is all about football, but Iowa State would be in that Northwestern Rutgers kind of.
I think they'd be with Iowa, Wisconsin.
Well, they would, but I'm talking about where they finish.
I'm talking about where they finish. I think they'd fit in with where Iowa will be, where Wisconsin will be, where Minnesota and Nebraska have been for a long time.
Wisconsin better be competing for the title, not this year, but in the next couple of years.
Yeah, they better, or Luke Fickell's going to be in some trouble. He won't be. He'll bring Wisconsin to the promised land, which is the playoffs, and then bolt to Ohio State. But, Iowa State has some more stuff going on with them, which we're going to talk about later in the show, so make sure you stay tuned for that. College football's getting pretty serious now.
Well,
there's a lot going on, and I think you're going to see the NCAA break just be gone.
What have you and I talked about for several years, even before the show started, that football will have its own entity. It will not be under the auspices of the NCAA. No. It will be its own thing for football, for just Power 5 conferences.
And I think you're going to start to see the conferences running themselves.
I do.
This will not be a new hierarchy where you have a new NCAA for the Power 5 conference. That will not be the case. This will be old school football before the NCAA, where all the conferences run themselves.
It's going to be interesting because you're going to have some way for them to work together.
There's going
to be 3 conferences. There's going to be the SEC, the Big 10, whatever, Big 20.
They won't play each other.
And the Big 12.
Yeah.
Or whatever they're going to call themselves.
But they won't play each other in season anymore. You won't see Wisconsin, Alabama, or Ohio State and Georgia, which hasn't been the case, but I'm just saying if it could be, you're not going to see them play each other early in the year. It's going to go back to what it was, where you are going to play every single game within your division. Maybe you have, like Ohio State has a rule within the state as a state school. They have to play another school within the state at some point because it shares that revenue with that school, and that makes sense. Like you're going to play a Miami of Ohio. You're going to play a Toledo or something like that. That's within the bylaws of the state, which is fine. But those are going to be the games you are going to play within your conference, and then it comes playoff time where you start playing against the other conferences. That's the only time they'll see each other. And there is a beauty to that I am excited for, because you're going to have your own rules dictated by your own conference. You are going to completely run yourself as a separate entity, and then it is your conference versus their conference in the playoffs, and there is a beautiful thing to that. Well, I'm excited to see it.
And make no mistake, the Big Ten is making the changes they're making to compete with the SEC so that the SEC isn't just the dominant.
And bowl games, by the way, with this are not going to be the thing they were. It's going to go back to the Rose Bowl was Big Ten versus Pac-10, best of the best. That's what it was. And it's become something that's not that anymore.
Because of the playoffs.
Because of the playoffs, but I think that's lost the beauty of the Rose Bowl. I really do. And by the conferences running themselves, that's what these bowl. You're going to have the playoffs, and I think you're going to have the bowl games. I think they're going to be two completely separate things, and you're going to have the best of each conference go in there.
How are you going to do that, though? Say if Ohio State wins the conference, the Big Ten conference, they're not going to play in the Rose Bowl. They're going to play in the playoff.
It's still a best Big Ten team versus another conference's best team that's not in the playoffs.
The best of the rest.
Right. Which still brings some magic to it, because it's like, listen, this may be our third place team. They're still better than your third place team.
Well, let's face it. I mean, in the scenario that we're describing, there's only going to be 3 conferences. So they're going to all have to break up between those bowls. Pac-12 isn't going to be playing in the Rose Bowl anymore because it isn't going to exist anymore.
Right. I mean, it's a Big Ten game. It'll turn itself back into a Big Ten game, and it'll be a Big Ten versus somebody else.
I think the Big Ten is making the right moves to make themselves a truly national conference, and if they can go and pick out somebody from the Southeast, which these guys are smart.
Miami's the one.
Miami and Clemson. Well, Miami and Clemson,
yeah,
I think are the targets.
Don't make the mistake of picking up another Florida team. Don't grab a USF or a UCF. No. Don't play that game.
Let them go to the Big 12 or wherever
they're going to go.
They don't fit.
But I think the SEC is going to be the last regional conference. They're going to strengthen themselves regionally. I could see those guys going to the Big 12, and the Big 12 being another really regional conference, or not a regional conference, a national conference with a lot of smaller teams.
They could go and try to get a Kansas State.
Kansas State's already in the Big 12.
No, I know, but the SEC could go and try to get them.
Yeah,
if they want to spread their reach a little bit.
They could.
But, and how long is Alabama's run? I'm not sure they make the playoffs this year. I do think Michigan and Ohio State will both be in the playoffs this year.
They could be. Is it 8 teams this year or next year?
Not this year.
Okay.
Not this year.
I know they're talking about expanding it very, very soon. I couldn't remember if they decided to do that this year or not.
I think it's 25 or 6.
Is it?
Yeah, I think.
They're going to 8 teams. I know.
But
I think you're going to see if these break off, say forget the NCAA, right? And they're running their own conferences, I don't think it's going to be that. I think you're going to see a playoff within the conferences. So the Big Ten's going to have a playoff, and the SEC is going to have their own playoff, and then the winner of those 2 playoffs face against each other to show who's the best of the best. I think that's where the beauty of that really comes in.
Then where does the Big 12 fit in?
They'll have their own, and maybe it's a bye, or you have maybe there's a 4th conference, or you just say screw the Big 12. I mean, that could be a thing too. You could find ways to do it.
I think they're going to have their own governing body. I really do. I think you're going to have somebody overseeing.
But look what happened with the NCAA. The NCAA has screwed up from the word go. They knew the NIL was coming and put nothing in place to protect against it, or to enhance it, or to make sure we don't have what we have today. They've made terrible decisions when it comes to social ideas in the NCAA that we've seen play out over the last few years.
Their decisions about the Olympics has been ridiculous. Let's face it, they've had absolute power, and what does absolute power do?
Corrupts, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And you've seen it, and that's why I don't want to see a giant governing body, because we've seen it fail. If you have different conferences that are competing against each other, it's the joy of what competition does, because now you're held accountable by the other conferences. Because if you make a rule that doesn't work that people turn against, guess what? You're going to lose a lot of good players to those other conferences. It keeps you honest. It keeps you within yourself. You don't need a governing body over all of this. You don't. It's failed miserably. We've seen it over the last 10 years play out. Go back to governing your own conferences, and we'll face off in the championship.
Look, I'm all for that. I didn't think baseball should go all interleague play. I think there was something unique about when football, and granted this going back 60 years almost, had the AFL and NFL. For business reasons, they play each other now, but baseball, for one thing, there should not be all that interleague play.
But the NFL did it right, where they still have the AFL and the AFC and NFC. They are very separate. They are still seen as two. We talk about all the time. The AFC is stronger than the NFC in quarterback play right now. They have the better teams. There is still a very separate. And when the NFC is playing the AFC, you cheer for your conference. You really do. I cheer for the NFC teams most of the time, unless it's football Jesus. Then I cheer for Joe Burrow because I'm a big fan. And I want him in the NFC so I can cheer for the NFC all the time. But you normally cheer for the NFC. You cheer for your own conference. They've done a really good job of showing pride in the teams that are in that conference that you want to see win. The Major League Baseball definitely hasn't done that. They've gone away from that so much it's ridiculous. And the NCAA and football is losing that too. They really are, and you can bring that back and make something magical. No more governing body. Break off, run your own conference.
That would be interesting to see. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but I don't mind if the Big Ten doesn't have an Ohio State, Alabama first game of the year.
No, I don't want to see that anymore. I really don't. Break off, make your own conferences stronger. Have a playoff within your own conference to show who's the best of the best in your conference. And then it's conference versus conference. Let's go.
Winner take all. It will be fun to watch. And I can't wait for it to happen. And I hope Florida State does break out of the ACC because I really want it. And obviously they've been in talks with the SEC about that $50 million buyout or whatever.
And the SEC and the Big Ten both have the money to pay for those buyouts.
For their own networks?
And if it becomes open season.
Now, it's going to be interesting in the Big Ten because USC and UCLA came in as a full partner immediately.
Correct.
Washington, Maryland, and Rutgers had a graduated scale for several years before they were a full partner.
Yeah, there's
It'll be interesting to see
difference between the two.
Obviously. It'll be interesting to see what Washington and Oregon get because I'm not sure they are full partners immediately.
I don't know. That's obviously part of the negotiating thing that they're working on right now. USC was the big target. The Big Ten was going to do whatever they could to get USC into the Big Ten.
And they took UCLA because
USC said so.
They had to get USC. And that ridiculous rule.
Yeah.
Where USC has to pay UCLA.
Hey, they agreed to it.
I know.
I quote, what's his name? The Colts owner. Why am I blanking right now?
Jim Irsay.
And saying, listen, you signed the deal. You want to renegotiate later when that contract runs up, we can.
He's going to be in a little bit of trouble now that his backup running back is out.
He is.
He's going to have to sign.
But you let us know real quick because we're going to transfer over to the NFL. Clearly, we're heading that way. But you let us know what you think about college football in the comments below. And while you're down there, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you get to enjoy this show as much as we enjoy making it.
You always cut me off.
Keep
You're
going.
Gonna have
I had
to
to do
re-sign
the transition.
Jonathan Taylor. Let me get out Jonathan Taylor and get Wisconsin some love.
There you go.
God. Go ahead. Next segment.
You transitioned to it. I just had to get in. You yell at me on this show consistently for missing that. I'm making sure I pause to hit that part.
Normally, you let the person on the other side finish talking, and then you go.
Go for it.
No. So, anyways, we've been talking off and on about predictions guaranteed to go wrong for the upcoming NFL season. We each came up with 5. We haven't shared them with each other, and we're going to count them down 5-1. You want to start with yours?
Age before beauty, sir. It is all you.
All right. My number 5 prediction. Bijan Robinson will win the rushing title and Rookie of the Year.
Wow.
Don't think it's that big of a stretch, actually.
A little bit.
Don't think so.
A little bit of a stretch. My number 5 prediction for the NFL season, and we are going to run these back at the end of the year, so make sure you hold on to this video, save it, because we're going to see how bad we were at the end of the year at these predictions, or in my case, how right I was. My number 5, this is Bill Belichick's last year as a coach of the New England Patriots. I think that he is going to be let go after another underperforming season. I think Kraft is done with him. I don't think Kraft likes how Brady turned out in the end.
No, he sided with Brady
100% of the time. I do think, however, Bill Belichick next year will be coaching another team, and if Dallas underperforms, Bill Belichick will be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys next year.
I could see that. Did they ever sign Zeke Elliott?
Still in conversation at this point. No run. Dalvin Cook has not signed. Ezekiel Elliott has not signed yet, and Josh Jacobs has still not signed his franchise tag.
My number 4 prediction: the Washington football team will make the playoff.
It all depends on Sam Howell and how he turns out. I think he was an underrated quarterback. I've said that on this show in the draft a couple years ago. He's got the keys to the kingdom now.
I believe in Ron Rivera. He's a great coach.
He is.
And I think he's going to get them over the top.
New ownership. The fans are very invigorated now.
Look, I think, and we talked about this, if I'm going to have something to go adjacent to this one, I don't think Dallas is going to be in the playoffs.
We're going to talk about the division winners and losers.
We'll do that here shortly.
Another
week.
So hang on for that too. But I think it's an interesting pick. I mean, Washington played really well last year with Tyler Heineke.
Did.
And if you felt confident enough to move on from Tyler Heineke, who won a lot of games for you, to go to Sam Howell, I mean, the kid's got to be pretty good.
What's your...
My number 4 prediction, this is Kyler Murray's last year in the NFL.
No surprise.
He's not going to play a lot this year. He's still hurt. I think there's not a lot of love lost, but I think I don't think there's a big feeling. I think with Oakland moving to Vegas, I think it's Kyler Murray's chance to come into a spotlight in baseball. I do think he's going to leave the NFL and go back to baseball at the end of the season because he is not a good quarterback in this league. I said when he was drafted, it was a mistake. He overperformed because people weren't prepared for him his rookie year, and he had a really good team around him. But last year is exactly what you're going to see Kyler Murray become. It was a dumb contract. You had to put something in there that said he has to study tape.
There were a lot
that tells
of
you all you need to know.
Yeah, there were a lot of red flags with him.
He's clearly, I mean, he seems like a very arrogant person who seems to care about himself a lot more than the team, which is not what you want out of a leader in your quarterback. And it fits baseball perfectly. I think he's going to leave the NFL at the end of this year, and he will be a member of what will be the Las Vegas A's starting next offseason.
Interesting. Okay. My next one, I was 1 year off last year, but the Lions win the NFC North. Going away.
Last year's make the playoffs. You were wrong.
By one game.
Dude,
One game.
it's all that matters in football.
I was wrong.
It's a game of inches. I mean, what makes you think the Lions...
Thank you for the cliche festival today.
That's all I am today.
What's
all
that?
I am. What makes you think the Lions are going to win the division? Because let's be honest, the NFC North could be a sneakily good division. Look what we said about the NFC East last year and how they finished. You have a lot of moving parts in the NFC North where that division could put 3 teams in the playoff, if not 4.
4, Gracie?
You could. The Bears are going to be better. The Packers, we're going to see a lot of what they can
That
do.
prediction's coming up. Look, the Lions were coming on last year. They believe in that head coach completely. If they bought into that program, I just think they're the best. I think they're the class of the conference. Justin Fields needs to take a huge step forward. He is this generation's Cam Newton.
Yeah, he has the ability to be.
He does, but
with a better arm. I mean, Justin Fields, people forget how good of a passer he really is.
I think the Vikings are going to take a step backwards. I think they're still going to be good, but I think the Lions are going to win. That one I want to come through badly.
Just because you mentioned the Vikings, I'm going to move this up from where it was to number 3. Kirk Cousins wins the NFL MVP this year.
That's not going to happen because
100%. 100%. The Vikings are going to win the division. I think the Vikings get the number 1 seed. They're not going to go to the Super Bowl, and if they do, they're not going to win. Come on, they're the Minnesota Vikings. But Kirk Cousins is a true leader of that team. The defense is a little suspect, but I think they can get that figured out. And Kirk Cousins has all the tools to be great. The primetime stats are not all they're cracked up to be. He performs well in the playoffs. He's been better than Joe Burrow. There's a statistic shown on the Pat McAfee show that showed Kirk Cousins versus Joe Burrow, who is football Jesus. And Kirk Cousins outperformed him in a lot of ways.
Kirk Cousins is very analytical. I think he'd be better if he just let his athleticism take over.
I agree.
And make the plays. But
he doesn't dress himself. His wife dresses him.
Okay. It's probably a good idea for all guys, to be honest with you. I thought
that was a fun thing to
Of course
know.
You did. All right,
He's very much a dork, and I love him for that. I hate the Vikings with the passion of 1,000 burning suns, but I can't deny the fact that Kirk Cousins, people forget his story. He was a 5th-round draft pick behind RG3. He worked his way up.
3rd-round draft pick from Michigan State.
I think he was 5th round. Was he 3rd?
No, 3rd.
All right. Either way, he was a late draft pick.
Mm-hmm. He was drafted behind
RG3, Andrew Luck, Russell Wilson. He was in that draft class.
He might have been 5th because I think Russell Wilson was 3rd.
Russell Wilson was 3rd. I'm positive he was a 5th-round draft pick.
Yeah.
His 5th-round draft pick, the Washington Redskins, worked his way up and has made himself into what he is today. Mm-hmm. I think he's a very underrated quarterback. I've been changing my tune on Kirk Cousins a lot lately, and I think Kirk Cousins is your NFL MVP this year.
Can't be, because my number 4 prediction, two. That's right, we're going 5. In my number 2 prediction, Trevor Lawrence is the NFL MVP this year.
That's a good prediction. I kept it off my list because we were talking about doing 10, and I left it off my top 5. But the Jaguars are in the AFC Championship game was a prediction of mine that I had, but I kept off my top 5.
I could see that. They're coming together. He and Doug Peterson are connected at the hip at this point.
Yeah.
He is just an unbelievable talent. I think he wins the MVP.
His rookie year doesn't count.
No.
His rookie year was last year.
Yes, it was. And look at how he played.
Amazing.
So,
won a playoff game.
He's going to take that next step, and he's the NFL MVP. So, sorry, Kirk Cousins. Not going to happen.
It's going to be Kirk Cousins.
Your number.
I like the way you think. I mean, you look at what they gave him. Calvin Ridley's there now.
Yeah.
Zay Flowers became quite the story last year as a wide receiver. Travis Etienne is there as a solid running back who can roll out and catch the ball. He has the offense ready to go.
They'll have a great team, and nobody will go.
Nobody will what?
No fans will go to those games.
Oh, got it.
It's still Jacksonville.
It's still Jacksonville. Nobody's going to go. They have to move. Again, they are going to St. Louis. If you are the Jaguars, if you are the NFL, you have to be in talks with the Jacksonville Jaguars to move to St. Louis. It is the perfect place.
Or San Antonio.
No. St. Louis is primed. It was a successful market when the Rams left. The reason they had such bad attendance towards the end is because the owner made it clear that they were moving to
Need a new stadium.
L.A.
You're going to have a new stadium.
According to St. Louis, they were willing to have those conversations, but the decision had been made. The owner bought them to move them to L.A.
And look at the palace that the Rams got in L.A. That deal was baked.
Is it a palace? They have a training facility that is, quote-unquote, a temporary training facility. Like, they spent $2 billion. They have a locker room that's not attached to the stadium. Like, there is a lot more that needs to be done with that stadium. That is surprising to me. Like, you have a weight room that is in a quote-unquote temporary building. I mean, come on. You spend $2 billion on a stadium, and you're not ensuring that the players come first?
Consider the owner.
I get it. But St. Louis is primed to build a stadium. They will build a stadium to get an NFL team back, and the Jaguars are the perfect team to go to St. Louis.
Okay.
But I can understand. My number 2, Baker Mayfield, will be a Pro Bowl player this year.
You're on
for
crack.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
You're on crack. Not a prayer.
He's got Mike Evans. He's got Chris Godwin.
Wait a minute. He may be if like 4 other quarterbacks.
No, he will be. For the NFC, he will be a Pro Bowl quarterback this year. That Tampa Bay team has a chance to be really, really good.
It's the NFC. It wouldn't be that much of a leap to get there. It's not a huge prediction. I mean, there's nobody in the NFC.
So you agree with me?
It's going to be Jalen Hurts.
So you agree with me? You all heard
Jalen
it.
Hurts.
With me now.
It's going to be Goff. It's going to be
Jordan
Kirk
Love.
Cousins. It's not going to be Jordan Love. No, Baker Mayfield is well down on the list.
He's got 2 great receivers. The running back game, we'll see what happens with that. I think Baker Mayfield, we saw parts of what he was capable of in Cleveland. We saw a lot of what he was capable with the Rams towards the end of the season. I think we're going to see him take that next step in Tampa Bay. There's a reason they signed him.
Yeah, because they had nobody else.
Don't be surprised. I mean, if we're talking AFC South or NFC South quarterbacks, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit, so make sure you stay tuned for that. I think he is going to be the best NFC South quarterback. And I think you're going to see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers be better than they were last year.
Again, the bar is not that high.
From last year's total, they had Tom Brady last year.
Yeah, and Tom Brady will end up in Vegas as a quarterback before the year is out. That was one of my top 10.
He could. This is your number 1 prediction for the NFL this year.
The Green Bay Packers will have a top 12 defense and still finish 4-13.
Is that possible?
Yes. Yeah, they're not going to score.
Well, they have a kicker that apparently can't make field goals.
Mason Crosby may still be the kicker for the Packers.
He went 12 for 20 in the first 2 games, including a 2 for 7 in the first practice. He did get better the second day, 4 for 6. Pretty ugly start.
I want them to do better, obviously. I want Jordan Love to be an outstanding quarterback.
Yeah. There will be a new picture. So there's a famous picture of the Packers, which we have had on this wall, that shows the 3 Hall of Fame quarterbacks. There will be a picture taken.
3 of the 4 or 5.
4 of the 5. 3 of the 5. But there will be a new picture taken in 25 years that has the 3 new Hall of Fame quarterbacks, which will be Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, and Jordan.
Wow, that is cockeyed optimism.
That's all I got, man. I'm a Cubs fan. I mean, all I got is hope sometimes.
Okay, so what's your
number one prediction for the NFL season is one I think you agree with, which is the Bills do not make the playoffs in 2023.
I actually agree with that.
I think they're going to take a huge step back. I think that there's some internal fighting that we only saw the tip of the iceberg on. And I think that they're going to take a big step back. Their defense is not what it was in the past. They lost some key pieces. You have aging stars on that defense for sure. I don't think their offensive line is as sound as it used to be. Their running back just got hurt. They really don't have a running game at all. They lost their 2 running backs from last year. And Hines, who they picked up in a trade last year, has a broken arm. Like he's out for a long time. I don't know what you're going to do for a running back this year for that team. There is a lot of pieces. They need a lot of things to go right. And I don't think people are paying enough attention to that. You have a lot of things that you need to go right. Now, because there is a 7th playoff team, they may sneak in that 7th playoff team race. But there are a lot of good teams in the AFC, especially in their own division. And I don't think the Bills make the playoffs this year. I think they finish 4th in their division and miss the playoffs.
A lot's going to depend on the injuries to Tua.
It does.
And what happens in New England. If Zeke Elliott goes there, I think they're going to be a much improved team and then probably make the playoffs.
Listen, we've seen tip of the iceberg problems in Green Bay, and look what happened with Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers. We've seen those issues come to fruition. And I think you're starting to see that glass house start to crumble in Buffalo. And I think they're going in full rebuild mode next year. I think they're going to have a top 5 pick, if not a top 10 pick, and they're going to miss the playoffs.
I think they'll miss the playoffs, but I don't think they'll miss it by much.
We'll see. Josh Allen's still a great quarterback, but he needs to start to become more of a pocket passer. I cannot talk today.
Packer.
As you can tell, I'm tired. I've been packing nonstop for this week, so I am very, very tired on our second show recording. It's been a week of weeks, but I think he needs to become a better passer.
Sure.
I don't think Stephon Diggs he's not happy there for some reason. They're saying they're good, but there's more to that.
It's almost like the Rodgers situation. Say they're good, but really they're not.
I don't think the Bills make the playoffs that year. That is my number one prediction for the 2023 NFL season.
Now, on for our division predictions. Are we going to do every division, or are we just going to do the AFC or NFC, or what are we doing? This is your segment.
I think we go through every division.
Let's
Let's start with the AFC North, what I think could end up being the best division in all of football this year. You have 4 solid teams. You have Lamar Jackson, who is reinvigorated with a big contract. I think I mentioned this last week. I think he is taking very much the Michael Vick trajectory, and he's becoming a better passer. And I think you're going to see a new Lamar Jackson this year that is going to be a part of that MVP race as well.
The big question is going to be is how badly hurt is Burrow? I mean, if it is just a calf injury,
I'm nervous about it. Because here's the thing, it's training camp and preseason, so you don't have to be super honest with those injury reports right now. You don't have to report these injuries until I think the first week of the season.
And I've seen no medical updates on him.
Because they don't have to give them.
Right.
And so you're not going to give them if you don't have to. But what we haven't seen since that injury is Joe Burrow on the practice.
No, you're not going to see him at all. He's not playing in any. He won't even suit up for a preseason game.
No.
First time
you're gonna see him in the next week or so in a preseason game, and on the sideline at least.
On the sideline.
The question is going to be: is this guy even walking? Is he on crutches? What's going on?
Is he in a boot? If Burrow is healthy, I still think they win the division. If he's not healthy, I think the Ravens are the class.
Well, let's not forget about the 2 other teams. You have the Browns.
I'd like to forget about the Browns.
With Deshaun Watson.
I'd really like to forget about them.
And a good team. Listen, I want to see, I've said from the word go, I want to see Deshaun Watson break his leg and never play another football game again. I'm not a fan of the guy. I'm really not. But you can't deny that he is a very talented player and was an MVP candidate just a few years ago.
Sure.
Now, I don't think he's going to take those next steps. And that might just be my bias, and I'm okay having that bias. But you also have Kenny Pickett, who looked a lot better at the end of last year than he did at the beginning of that year.
And he's got Mike Tomlin, and anytime a team has Mike Tomlin as their head coach, they're going to be good.
And you have George Pickens, who is going to be a top 5 receiver this year.
Look, if Burrow is hurt, I think it's Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Cleveland, or Cleveland, Cincinnati. I mean, it all depends on Burrow. If Burrow's healthy and can play, I still think they win the division. I still think then Baltimore finishes second and Pittsburgh finishes third.
I think Pittsburgh wins the division. You're getting TJ Watt back on a very good defense. Don't forget how good that defense is in Pittsburgh. TJ Watt was hurt most of last year. He is coming back. You have to bring up,
every time I hear TJ Watt, and I love him, he's from the town we live in.
Yeah. Just down the road.
2 minutes away.
Yeah.
He should have been a Packer.
Yeah. Thanks, Ted. Appreciate it.
Move on.
It's a parting gift. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers win the AFC North in a very contested division because I don't know if Burrow is okay. And if Burrow misses the first 5 to 6 games, which I think is possible, then it is the Pittsburgh Steelers division to win. But the Ravens are going to be good. If Burrow's okay, the Bengals are going to be really good, and the Steelers are going to be really good too. My prediction is the Steelers win this division. AFC East, again, could be the best division in football.
Well, we both said we don't think Buffalo makes the playoffs. So I think the Jets, with all the additions, and they're still not done.
No.
When is Rodgers best?
When he's pissed off.
When he's got a chip on his shoulder. And he's got a chip on his shoulder as big as the Grand Teton Mountain right now.
Well, and Sean Payton added more to it.
He did. Yeah, because he's hurting one of his friends.
Yep.
The Jets win. I think Miami finishes second. If Zeke Elliott goes to New England,
that's the question.
Then they finish third. If he doesn't, then the Dolphins finish third.
I think the Jets win the division going away.
It's a great division.
I think they're going to win 13 games this year, minimum. I really do.
Talk about an opening Monday night game.
Yeah.
Jets and Bills.
Yeah. I think the Jets run away with that game. I really, really do. I think you are going to see Nathaniel Hackett carried off on the shoulders of the players after a Week 5 victory against the Denver Broncos.
Look, Rodgers is a man on a mission right now. He is going
that Bronco game, the Jets are going to stomp the Broncos, and Nathaniel Hackett will be carried off on the shoulders of his players after they start the season 5-0. I mean, if you look at the schedule, it's tough, but they're going to come out firing on all cylinders. And I don't think that schedule is going to be as tough as people are making it out to be. Again, I don't think the Bills are going to be a tough team this year. I think they're really going to fall apart. The Patriots, I've already said, this is Bill Belichick's last year. This is it for them. I think the Patriots finished dead last in this division. I think they start over with Mac Jones. I think he's gone after this year. Bill Belichick is gone after this year. And if the Dallas Cowboys are bad, he will be in Dallas. I don't think they're going to be that bad, though. I think the Bills finish third in this division with 5 to 6 wins this year. And I think the Dolphins are going to be right there. They're going to get a wild card game, but I don't really think this division is going to be that close.
I think they win 7 or 8 games. I just don't. Josh Allen's going to will them to a couple victories.
I've seen this fall apart. That AFC Championship game and the way they played last year reminded me a lot of that 2014 NFC Championship the Packers played in, because look what happened after that. They were decent the next year and started to fall and fall and fall. There's a loss like that where you weren't truly giving the opportunity or blew it the way that they did. It stings. It sticks with you.
Well, we're going to find out. But I think we both agree the Jets are the class of that division at this point.
The AFC South is where it gets interesting, because this could be a really bad division or a division that's meh.
There's 2 teams. There's 2 teams in that division.
There's one team in this division.
Well, yeah. Jacksonville is going to win the division.
By a lot.
Trevor Lawrence is the MVP this year.
Ryan Tannehill will be replaced by Will Levis or Malik Willis. Don't forget he's on that team, and he's looked really good in practice.
Speaking of a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah.
I think it'd be good for Levis to sit all year.
I think so, too. You got to see what you have in Malik Willis.
You do. So I could see that happening, but I think Tennessee is by far easily the second best team in that division. You've got 2 brand new quarterbacks in Houston and in Indianapolis. If
you get Jonathan Taylor on that team and you can figure it out with what Anthony Richardson is capable of,
sure, they'll sign. Taylor's going to be in camp. They will figure something out.
He's going to be there. I mean, otherwise he's going to get fined. There's no doubt he's going to be there. But if you can come to an agreement with him the owner can stop talking, and I get why Israel is talking, right? I think Pat McAfee said it best, who knows him best of anybody that's on there. He's the oldest tenured owner in the league.
He's got a big mouth.
He feels like he is the head of the owners, and they are in a fight right now. And Israel said it best in saying, listen, you signed the CBA. We're not going to change it because one player group thinks that they're being undervalued, which they very much are, and everybody knows that. But they're going to work it out, because Jim Israel is also a guy who has paid players and treated players better than any other owner in this league. Let's not mistake, he let Andrew Luck keep his signing bonus.
Sure.
No player that leaves Indianapolis ever has anything bad to say about the Colts organization.
But if they don't get the deal done with Jonathan Taylor, Anthony Richardson is in a world of hurt.
They have to have Taylor on that team.
Gotcha.
That needs to happen. And if they get that, I think they'll be able to compete for second place and maybe a wild card spot. I don't think they will. Houston, Stroud's going to start looking really good at the end of this year, but they are not there yet. They really haven't given Stroud anything to work with. I kind of hope they let Stroud sit for most of the year.
They won't.
Because I don't want to see happen to Stroud, which happened to David Carr, which is very much the situation Stroud is walking into right now.
He's going to be enjoying a lot of time on his back if he's the starting quarterback.
Yeah, we don't need to see him get sacked 70 times. We just don't. Jacksonville's going to run away with that division. The AFC West, you think, is going to be better than I do.
The Chiefs are the class. The Chargers are going to be in the hunt. I'm very interested to see what happens in Denver. Russell Wilson had better have a turnaround year, and a big-time turnaround year, or he's done.
Right. This division could turn into what we thought it was going to be last year.
The best
very much
football.
Could.
And the Raiders,
Garoppolo's a winner.
But he's going to get hurt, and Brady's going to come in.
Possible.
So
he knows Josh McDaniel's system, so it's not like he'd have to have a huge learning curve.
No, and he's still in excellent shape. It'll take him a week to get into football shape because he's that good.
Takes care of his body.
Right. So I think the Raiders are fighting for second or third. I think Denver's going to be at the bottom.
Do you? It's a big turn from last year. Congratulations, Denver fans. He just jinxed you in the opposite way this year.
That might help. I mean, I love Russell Wilson, but I hated his ego last year.
Yeah, well, Sean Payton's going to keep him in check. I mean,
Sure.
The thing is we all learn, right? I think you said it best when you're talking about Russell Wilson. He's always looking for bigger and better, and I think the celebrity got the best of him on that one. And we all get slapped down when we get to that way. We really do.
First thing Payton did was get rid of his own coaches
and his office.
All of that's done. He's a player, and that's it.
But Sean Payton, I think, jinxed himself by going after another coach and breaking the code. I mean, I think the Broncos are going to be better. The Chiefs are going to run away with that division. The Chargers will have a new head coach next year. I don't think they're going to perform well.
Okay.
I really don't. They're fighting their own running back battle, and without Akers being on that team, you are not as good of a team. Period.
We're going to find out. Now on to the NFC.
Let's start with the West. The West is the most confusing. Man, I need to learn to talk.
You're on vacation mode.
That's true. It is the most confusing division, I think, that is in the NFL right now.
You've got three teams that could be great. They could be nah. I think
Cardinals are going to finish with one win this year.
They're last. They may be the first 0-17 team.
They might. They're going to be a bad team.
They're going to be awful. Seattle made some strides, but I still don't think Geno is.
Take a step back.
I don't think he's the guy to get him to the promised land. I think the Rams are going to be improved.
The Rams are going to make the playoffs. The Rams are a wild card team this year.
The 49ers are the class of the division.
They are.
I think Brock Purdy's going to be.
He'll be ready for
good.
week one.
He'll be ready, which is amazing considering that injury.
Yeah.
San Francisco's got.
Here's a question for San Francisco.
Coach.
It's a little bit off of this, but do you think that Trey Lance gets moved before the beginning of the season?
I could see him ending up in Cincinnati.
I could too. We talked about that a lot last week.
I can see that happening. He's going to have to go someplace where he's going to be the definite backup. I could also see him end up in Green Bay. But
no, you're not going to do that to Jordan Love. You're going to give him every chance.
Well, it depends on if Jordan Love falters. And if he falters...
I'm saying before training camp, though. I'm not talking before the trade deadline. I am talking before training camp. And the Packers are not trading for another quarterback.
No, they're not. Not before
during training.
The trading. You're right. Which, again, it all depends on Burrow's injury. And if Burrow is hurt that badly, you bring in Trey Lance.
I think that's a spot if he's going to be traded. I 100% agree. I think that the 49ers are going to run away with it. I really do. They have the best team in the NFC by far. Even if Sam Darnold comes in, he can carry that team.
They could win 14 games.
Easily. Easily. I think they'd be the only team to win 14 games. I don't think anybody in the AFC is winning 14 games. Not because they're not capable.
No, they're going to be
because there's a lot of good teams in the AFC. It's like what we saw in the NFC in the early 2010s. There was just a lot of good teams. The Rams are going to win 10 games.
Unless Stafford gets hurt.
It is all on Stafford. If Stafford is healthy, though, he is a Hall of Fame quarterback. Let's not forget, he is a first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback. He is one of the best quarterbacks of his generation, and he's a Super Bowl winner now.
Yep.
If he is healthy and playing to the way he's capable of, the Rams are going into the playoffs and are going to be a threat to win a couple playoff games. The NFC South, which looks pretty stinky from the outside.
Everybody's talking about how Bryce Young is going to get the Panthers. No, Atlanta's going to win the division.
Really?
I think so.
That's my pick, too. I'm surprised we're on the same page with that.
Look, they've got Bijan Robinson. They're going to ride that stallion to the finish line.
They are. And then they're going to have to sign him to a big contract because he's not going to play the next year. Because if he's smart, he holds out after year one.
You got to get your money when you
I think that's what you're going to start seeing from running backs. They're going to overperform the first year and get paid on that second year. And I think that's completely fair for that position.
Yes.
Because they're going to be burned out by year 5.
Robinson is a talent we haven't seen come into the NFL.
It all depends on the offensive line, though.
I think they're going to have a decent offensive line. He'll find the holes.
Right.
It's just such an awful division.
Look what happened with, why do I keep forgetting his name? The Saints pick. They traded the whole draft.
Oh, Ricky Williams.
Ricky Williams, the reason he didn't perform is because that offensive line was so bad. And he was great for how bad that offensive line was and the rest of that
But
team.
he went up in smoke.
That was good.
Thank you.
I like that one. That was good. If I had a laugh track, I'd play it for you. That was clever.
So who are you taking in you've got Atlanta as well.
I got Atlanta in there. I have 3 predictions for the NFC South.
Okay, what is it?
I have Atlanta wins the division by a game. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are in second place in a wild card team with a Pro Bowl quarterback in Baker Mayfield. And Jameis Winston is going to start more games than Derek Carr for the Saints.
I don't think that's a stretch. I think Derek Carr
just signed Derek Carr to a big 3-year deal. He's going to get every chance to start. But Jameis Winston also signed a 1-year deal to stay with the New Orleans Saints. And I think within 4 or 5 games, you are going to see Jameis Winston and his goofiness take over.
Insane talent.
Yeah, insane talent.
I think one team is making it into the playoffs from this division, and I think that's Atlanta.
That's fair. The NFC East, we called it what would be the worst division, and we're very, very wrong.
Yes.
Last year. I mean, you're the one that said it out loud, so
put it on me. That's fine.
Put it on you.
Philadelphia wins the division. Best quarterback in the NFC by far. Not even close. Commanders finished second in my rundown.
Called them the Commanders. I'm impressed with you.
I know.
Is that a mistake?
Washington football team. I mean, but they're going to make the playoffs. Giants are going to finish ahead of Dallas.
You're putting Dallas last?
I'm putting Dallas last.
I mean, it could happen. It really could.
It's all going to be on
the reason they're not going
Dak
to.
Prescott.
It is on Dak Prescott. They're going to run the ball more. Tony Pollard's going to get a lot more chances. The great thing about Mike McCarthy when he was really good with the Packers is that running game opened up the passing game. And so you need more of the run. As long as he's not what he was at the end of the Packers, where it was run, pass, run, pass. It was the most predictable offense in NFL history. And I don't think he will be. I said this last year. I saw the Packers coach back last year in the playoffs. I saw that look in his eye where he was analyzing the game, even that injury timeout when he was looking past the players, analyzing the game. That's the Mike McCarthy that I know and love from the early 2010s. That's the Mike McCarthy I know.
That being said,
that defense is going to be good.
Sure.
Again, with Dan Quinn. They're already getting chippy with each other in training camp. Trayvon Diggs and Dak Prescott get into it, which I thought was great. I don't think they're going to finish that bad. If they are that bad, Bill Belichick will be their head coach next year. But I don't think they will be. They will be a playoff team. I think they're going to compete for the division with Philadelphia. Philadelphia lost a lot of pieces, and a lot is on Jalen Carter being the player that will replace what they lost. If Jalen Carter is not what they expect him to be, that team's going to take a step back, and they're going to be run on a lot. I think he will be.
Okay, we'll find out.
There's a big if on that defense. That offense is going to be lightning, but they're not going to put up Madden numbers like they did last year. They were beating people like it was a video game last year. You're not going to see that this year. And I think that Dallas team is going to be a lot better. I think Philadelphia wins because Jalen Hurts is on his way to what I believe will be a Hall of Fame career.
Still,
that Dallas team is going to be really, really good. And if Dak Prescott can just be what he was even in year 2 of Dallas.
I may be wrong. I just don't see Dak taking that.
That's going to be the hard part. It's such a question mark because that Dallas team can be really good.
It can. But Dak's got to make. There's one thing about a quarterback. The decision-making doesn't get better with veteran quarterbacks as they go on in time. You get what you get.
It's true. It's fair.
So, and he's made bad decisions. I like him as a quarterback, but I
have friends that are Dallas fans that are pretty tired of him. But, I mean, he's what you got.
Okay. Now on to our favorite division, the NFC North.
There's a lot of ifs this year in the NFL. Because, I mean, we're going to be wrong on some of these predictions.
NFC.
No, in the NFL, though. Because we're calling out some teams. I mean, you look at the AFC North. Any team can win that division. You look at the AFC East. Any team can win that division. I can be very wrong about Buffalo. I'm not, but I could be.
Well, in this case, I'm not going to be wrong this time. Detroit wins the division. Minnesota second. Chicago third, but doesn't make the playoffs.
How dare you, sir?
And the Packers are
How
bringing up the
dare
bottom.
you? I know
Packers
I've been saying that, but I've seen Jordan Love in training camp, and I've seen some of the throws he's making.
So have I.
He had back-to-back good practices.
He's been there for 3+ years. I want him to be great. I really do, because he has handled that situation with Rodgers. Rodgers is a good teammate, by the way. And if you haven't heard this, Rodgers actually texted Jordan Love and told him to just be himself and he'll be fine. He didn't have to do that.
No.
I think he's been a much better mentor than Favre was to Rodgers. And I think that was his commitment. He was going to mentor this kid, and he's done a great job at that.
Don't forget, you have the capability of a top 10, if not top 5 defense. I don't know if the coordinator is going to get him there, but it's capable of being that.
All evidence to the contrary with that
from
coordinator.
Last year. Yeah. As long as he stops playing zone and starts playing man-to-man, we'll be a lot better.
All evidence to the contrary.
You still have Aaron Jones. You still have A.J. Dillon, and as long as he learns to run north and south, he'll be a lot better.
And you had a wide receiver in Christian Watson that came on in the second half of the season and was the best wide receiver in football after week 10.
Right.
So,
did you know why it's called north and south, off topic? Because all fields point north and south. The sun goes east and west.
Then why was that division always the central division for eons?
What are you talking about? I'm saying the fields always face north and south.
Oh, it's the same reason the tennis courts are facing north and south.
That's why you talk about running backs going north and south. I gave you a fun fact, and you ruined it.
Sorry. Who are you taking in the division?
Vikings win the division. The Lions finish second. The Packers finish third. The Bears finish last. But it is a division that could spawn 3 playoff teams. I said it earlier in the show, and is very capable in a weak NFC. Because if you look at this, where are the other playoff teams going to come from? You have a playoff team that could come out of the NFC West in a wild card. You have a NFC South wild card team. And then you have another wild card team that could either come from the NFC East or NFC North. Anything can happen in the NFC.
Detroit and Minnesota are going to make the playoffs.
They are. I think that leaves the Packers out, because I do believe that the Buccaneers are going to make the playoffs, and I do believe the Rams are going to make the playoffs, which leaves the Packers out of the playoffs this year.
You may be right. I'm not a believer in Baker Mayfield.
And that's the difference. So I don't think the Packers make the playoffs this year. I think they're going to be better this year than what a lot of people think they're going to be. But the problem that you're going to have with the Packers, this is probably your last year with Aaron Jones.
Definitely the last year.
And that team's going to start to slowly fall apart.
That's not what front office thinks is going to happen. I think they're a top 2 or 3 pick in the draft. They're going to get a quarterback.
If they're a top 2 or 3 pick in the draft, then yeah, they're going to get a quarterback. They're going to have 2 first-round draft picks this year for a reason. But you're going to lose the running back, which means you have to rely on A.J. Dillon, which means you have to sign A.J. Dillon. You don't know who your safeties are going to be.
If they don't fire Barry, I think Jair Alexander is going to leave.
I mean, he's under contract. He's going to have to get traded. But it's an interesting division. I think the Vikings win and the Detroit Lions finish second, Packers third, and Bears dead last this year. But it could be a more competitive division than what I think it's going to be.
We'll see.
It's going to be interesting. You guys let us know what you think in the comments below of our predictions for this year. And while you're down there, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get to enjoy this show as much as we enjoy making it. You and I have had a very fun show today, but you cannot have a conversation with your dad without your father getting the last word. So it is all you.
So I'm going to end the show today with a couple hard truths for all of the baseball. Well, starting with the baseball one. For all of you people that continually cry for Pete Rose to be in the Hall of Fame, stop it. He doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. Before you walk into any locker room in minor or major league baseball, there's a big sign that says if you bet on baseball, you will be banned. What he did as a manager was worse than if he would have done it as a player. Because as a manager, he had the ability to manipulate his roster. He could leave a guy in too long. He could take him out too early. He could just not pitch somebody or play somebody. Pete Rose should never see the inside of the Hall of Fame unless, and not even if he buys a ticket. He's had many chances to apologize, to get in. He turned them down, and he just doesn't belong in there. My other hard truth, and this is a hard one to say, but unless the Bucks are ready, the Milwaukee Bucks are ready to really make some moves to change the roster and break up, personally, I'd say Chris Middleton. Giannis is going to win one championship in Milwaukee. He's going to win another one for somebody else because he's not going to finish his career here. I hope I'm wrong about that one, but just reading the tea leaves, I don't think they're going to have a great year. They're going to be in the playoffs, obviously, but there's something about that core that's just missing. They got over the hump once with it. I don't think they get over the hump with that same core again. So that's my hard truths for everyone today.
Why are you going after the Bucks like that? You know what hard truth I have to say for everybody in baseball? Cubs are officially a World Series team. I have lit the cigar again for Joe Boo.
Okay. You're definitely on vacation mode and you're smoking something.
I'm dreaming. I'm Chicago dreaming. And
I'd love to see it.
37 runs.
I think they've got a chance to win the division because it's not a great division.
No, 3 games back.
Yeah. Going into August.
Joe Boo's on my side. He just proved it. He just proved it. In the last 2 days since we lit that cigar, the Cubs have scored 37 runs.
I'm happy.
It is the proof Joe Boo is the answer for the Chicago Cubs. You're welcome, Cubs fans. Thank you so much for watching. As always, it's been Sports Talk with Dad, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.